crazy like a fox. Are you ready?
These 5 chapters are fucking wild.
They are so full.
Slap. You're drawing the one thing I need for sure, right?
Did you know that this section has several bits that were added that apparently Oda wanted to include?
Really?
Yeah.
That would have been good to know.
They were cut out because he wanted to get to the Grand Line and finish the prologue by 1000.
You should have told me.
Well, I forgot.
I can't remember. Is the first page 96?
I believe so.
96?
Can I pitch a way to go through this?
Okay.
This is so short that I think instead of going through it in order like we often do, where we like, oh, this section, this section, this section, I think what we should do is we talk about this in conceptual pieces one at a time.
Listen.
Yes?
I don't want to agree with you. I want you to know, but on the other hand, it's your birthday, so I'm gonna.
It's fun to just have that privilege for a day.
I'm gonna do it in a good spirit, because it isn't a good thing if you say fine, but then you have a bad attitude.
So, I would say there are 2 significant introductions to characters here that are recurring characters in the series, Smoker and Tashigi. What do we think about the way these 2 are added to the series?
Okay, well, the Tashigi one made me mad in retrospect. Can I just say that...
Please elaborate.
I actually felt really fucking ripped off.
Okay.
No, because I was like, okay, so we meet her character. She has this really cool, like, uniqueness immediately. Like, the other characters, none of the other characters were Tashigi. Tashigi had a really, like, individual character right away.
Yeah.
And then you reintroduce her immediately and take her into the sword shop. You let her first be seen as this person who has like great fighting skills. Then we find out that she also is really intelligent and
at least knowledgeable,
and I was going to say, and is at least knowledgeable. Intelligent and critical thinking are debates. And then we don't get to see her again really as a strong and interesting character till a gazillion million pages later, and it's like she's just been forgotten about, and the whole plot line with her being so much like Zoro's bestest best bud just disappeared. And I feel a little bit like Oda was like, I am balancing so much shit, I just don't have time for the balancing of this. And when we read, I didn't used to feel bitter about that, but now that I saw her again and realized how cool her character was. No, I did. I felt bitter again. She was such an interesting character. And when we met her, to have her in a position where she was kicking some ass and then came in with all this knowledge about swords, like, yeah, she kind of has like really, really based feelings around good versus bad in this section. But I just think...
sorry, you mean really basic, right? Not based.
Yeah. Not based, just basic. I really thought we were going to get to know her more. And I was kind of like... I wasn't as depressed or sad about it until this.
Hey, so real quick, on the note of based, I need to say, Gen Alpha, you're dropping the ball on slang. Zoomers have you beat. Millennials, we had bad slang. Zoomers, excellent slang. Good job, team. Gen Alpha, so far, pretty disappointing work. I was really hoping for another knockout of the park with like the Zoomers got. They can't all be winners. Frankly, my gen, we were losers at slang. So I can't judge. I'm disappointed.
When you and your sister and my sister talk, I'm always like, no, it's so old. Okay, move on. Anyway, yeah, I kind of felt ripped off this time because it'd been a while since I'd seen the beginning of her story, and I thought the beginning of her story was actually incredible. And it was the beginning of something that could have been really impressive.
I really liked her in Alabasta. I will say we need to see more of her post time skip, because Punk Hazard is obviously a disappointing time for Tashigi and Smoker.
Especially since it was just breast Tashigi.
I mean, granted, that was mostly Smoker as Tashigi, which is a funny bit, but it did get old.
That's what it felt. It felt like she had been zombie puppeted and we didn't even get more of her to find out like what makes her more interesting and stuff. Like there's so much potential.
Did you know Oda likely, we don't know which parts he actually wanted to include in this section and didn't, to make it so that the prologue ended at 100, and which parts the anime added in to fill time. Because obviously, probably not all of the filler was Oda's idea. My guess is a character you don't know called Daddy Masterson was in fact not Oda's idea. But one of the little extra details
in Masterson?
Don't worry about Daddy Masterson. Probably isn't real in my opinion. Some people will disagree with me, but
Daddy Masterson.
Daddy Masterson, yes.
Okay.
So the bit with Tashigi is actually pretty extended in this section. In the anime, and it ends up with Zoro being coerced by Tashigi into being a chore boy who has to mop the Marine headquarters. Does it add more to Tashigi's character? Who's to say? But we do get more of her in the anime.
I just really feel like he meant to do things with her, and then he just lost the plot there. He was like, I literally need to make a sacrifice, and Tashigi, congratulations.
Can I tell you my take? Because I actually think it's different. I think we talked earlier on the phone about how One Piece was very clearly earlier meant to be shorter, right?
Definitely.
Yes, we know this for a fact. But we also know that the end game was always planned. So, hear me out.
Yeah.
Where we're at in the manga right now, I think was always planned. One of the main themes in the manga right now is the idea that there are Marines who are having to confront whether they're on the good side or the bad side. We see this in the flashback now with Garp being like, yeah, I'm going to go punch that elder, and his soldiers being like, you do not. What the? No. So I think what Tashigi was meant for is now happening, but all of this stuff around the Seven Warlords wasn't really originally meant to be part of the story. It was supposed to more quickly arrive at this, and I think threading what he wanted for Smoker and Tashigi through the Four Emperors saga was pretty goddamn impossible, and that also likely ended up being a lot longer than he wanted, since he wanted the entire series to be 5 years, and that saga took 5 years.
Yes.
So I think they were meant for the game of One Piece we're in now. Elbaf wasn't even intended originally. So I think we were right now supposed to be in the part of the story that Tashigi would be about, where the Marines are having a schism.
That's what I was saying. Like, I don't think that he intended it to be the way that it was. Like, he didn't know that he was going to pop off. And he's like, some narrative and some character development I dropped down is going to have to be lost. So, will I pick it up again? Maybe, but I'm sorry, Tashigi, because it really feels like in this meeting we had with Tashigi, I was like, this is the introduction of a character that we are going to spend time with. But I already know we're not.
I think we will. But I will agree, reading this in retrospect, it is sad to be like, wow, it felt like Tashigi was going to be a more important character than she is. Same with Smoker, honestly.
Yeah, same with Smoker, but Tashigi, especially just because of the delving into Zoro's past, like, I thought it was really we were really going to get to clip off, and that was going to be like a reveal and a moment between us that we were going to enjoy as readers, and I really feel kind of like a little let down that I'm not getting that. Okay,
so here's a question. Here's something that I have to thinking about, right? Do you think Tashigi is from Zoro's village and was orphaned from there? Do you think Tashigi was like from another Wano colony? Because we know that the Tashigi and her family are ethnically from Wano, and there aren't that many Wano people in the East Blue. So, like, is she from the same island? Is she an orphan from elsewhere? Like, do you think, like, we probably will never find out, but it feels a little weird in retrospect knowing.
I think she's Kuina.
You think she's Kuina? Like, actually Kuina?
Yes, I think that she had to leave there because she was never going to reach her potential.
But then she'd recognize Zoro.
If she was in a place that was under men, no, not necessarily. Like, she grew up to look a lot like herself. And I don't think that.
But there's like, I don't think her personality's different. He's a green boy, a green Wano boy with 3 swords. Like, there's no way she wouldn't recognize him.
She didn't know that he was a Wano boy. She didn't know any of that.
But what I'm saying is, people seem to be able to recognize each other by face in One Piece, and Zoro ethnically is from, like, his ethnicity would be Wanoese or whatever. So it feels like you'd recognize the green Wanoese boy, right?
Their age is
the age different? Oh, no. God, I think
they're the same age.
Wanian? Oh, and it would be her sword.
She would have recognized her own sword, though.
Yeah.
She would have recognized her sword unless she wasn't killed and instead she had amnesia or something. No, that's too far-fetched. She's dead.
That's where, okay, I'm glad we got here.
Only because of her sword have I decided she's dead.
I think it wouldn't be unlikely for her to be
the same area.
Yeah, to be like an orphan from his island who got adopted or something could make sense to me. And there's any number of explanations, but I do think it makes sense if her family came from the same island.
Was from the same place
It
because
could
he
also,
does says, like, she looks too much like her, she's
yeah.
also into swords, it's very possible it's the part of the same thing. Either that or sugar touched her. Either that or she's got a little bit of the sugar on her.
But that wouldn't erase her memories of other people.
People saying there's no such thing as amnesia in One
No,
Piece
they're
is
joking. They're being
ridiculous.
sarcastic.
No, I know they're being sarcastic. I've met the squishies. I'm just saying people saying there's no such thing as amnesia in One Piece would be a ridiculous plot line to follow in a story that has sugar.
Why do you pronounce sugar like you're from Ontario?
What?
You are going through dental surgery right now. Your pronunciation might be lilted, I realized.
Every part of your mouth hurts different all the time, so you don't speak the same ever.
As someone with really bad teeth, naturally, thanks for that, by the way,
You're welcome.
having to be a fairly young person with partial dentures, I did have to relearn how to talk.
You're welcome for that. If it
Yeah.
makes you feel better, you won't get wrinkles.
I did get that I mean, I'm gonna get wrinkles one day, just slowly.
Not really. They happen so slow. I mean, have you seen my wrinkles?
Look, I got little crow's feet when I smile big. I think it's pretty cute.
Do I have crow's feet?
When you smile
No.
big.
I've decided not to have them. Plus, there's nothing funny enough to smile that big. So, the other thing I was gonna say is Smoker, I feel mildly ripped off about, but I feel like we got a little more about things later on with Smoker. Smoker has a more prominent role. I just feel a little
Yeah.
ripped off on Tashigi.
Can we just agree,
But
though, that both of their intros are really solid?
so good. It was so well done because I forgot how short this was based
It's
on the
nothing.
fact that it was so deeply
Well,
done.
based on the fact that for the first few months of reading One Piece, you reread the Roger speech over Dragon like every week. You would, at minimum, you would reread. You printed it out to
I
look
still
at it
do.
more.
It's my mouse pad.
Yeah, literally, your mouse pad is meant to remind you about Dragon's words over, Roger's words over Dragon's face. Like that is literally
And
your
yet,
mouse pad.
and yet I only properly learned something today.
Okay, hit me up, hit me up, hit me up.
No, that's the thing we're doing later.
Okay,
Which-
I'm excited.
How long I have it on my mouse pad right under my little mousey mouserson, and it took me until today to be like, wait a minute, I'm gonna need a sentimental woman to pump me up, and then did a little work.
Sentimental.
Also, I forgot the scene with the sword. I couldn't decide if I thought the sword shop owner, if I liked him, but there was something very strange about him being all like, oh, you can't have this and I'm gonna rip you off.
He's a goober and he's a con man and a snake oil salesman, but goddamn if he doesn't have some dignity to him. He's just he's a character with a lot of layers, you know? I also do love him being like, I hate that Smoker guy. He's a monster chasing off my customers. Like clearly this guy's
It was very interesting that he was like, bah, bah, I don't think you're any good and I'm gonna waste your money. Oh, you did the flippity dippity thing and your arm didn't cut off? Well, clearly you are a natural born swords person, and now I must have you have my family sword?
Wait. It wasn't necessarily the family sword. It was like just the best sword in the shop. Like that was their best.
Yeah, but then Tashigi says later on here, well, imagine a miser like you giving away your shop's treasure. Women don't understand anything. What's wrong with a man entrusting another man with his dreams?
Oh, that's actually sweet though. He wanted his sword to get to be in the hands of a great swordsman. Yeah.
And that's what it felt like, that it was his family sword. It carried his dreams.
I think there's something so interesting to that, right? Like Tashigi, his and Zoro's perspectives are so neat together because Tashigi's is kind of unrefined philosophy of like it's undignified for a weapon to be in the hands of someone who isn't using it for good. But if you go to the Wano perspective on swords, you see the guy who made the Wado Ichimonji and Enma, or no, those are separate guys. He made Enma. That guy is like, what's a sword's job? To kill. People claim a sword is cursed when it asks for blood, but they were forged for fighting. They were forged to slay people. These are tools with the purpose to fight,
how is that a
not
curse?
to do justice. Yeah. How is it a curse to make a good sword?
Okay, well, I thought when I saw that too, do you want to hear another thing I was disappointed about in retrospect?
I'm allowing a lot of disappointment. You are normally pitching to me about these early chapters being great, and I'm like, well, here's some critiques.
No,
I'm coming in with very few critiques. You got the fire.
Chapter.
Yeah, you hit me up.
If anything, I love this. I love these chapters even more. My second read through, I was like, fuck, there's a lot hidden here.
Fair, okay.
I was disappointed in the modern context that we really paid less attention to dreams than we did in the beginning, and treasure.
Hmm.
The idea of treasure, the way that we did before, and the idea of passing down a dream. I was like, I understand your need, want to lean into them in the exact same measure you did in the beginning. But now that I'm reading back in the beginning, the one line in here of the swordsman saying, "What's wrong with a man entrusting another man with his dreams?" was so beautiful.
Yes.
That I was kind of like, when is the last time that I've heard anybody talk about their
Well,
dreams in this
I
way?
think we have quite a bit.
Been a fucking hot minute.
I actually disagree. I think dreams have been coming back in. I think the Four Emperors saga, we shelved dreams because it was about the practicality, the realization of being
I don't
great
disagree with that.
means something. There's weight to greatness. Like it was the consequence of becoming what you are. And then at the very tail end of Wano, dreams start to bubble up again. We see Yamato carrying on the dream of Odin. We see Momonosuke confronting Odin's dreams. We see King placing his dreams in Kaido and then needing to
Wano
accept
isn't where
that
I
Luffy
thought
will
we
carry
lost dreams.
Well,
I
and
think we
then,
lost dreams in Egghead, and
but,
then we
but in
lost
Egghead, we
dreams.
still specifically have the line from Vegapunk saying devil fruits are dreams. Clearly someone built these. These were made for dreams.
Yeah, but you know why I think that we lost it? Yeah, they were built for dreams, but the reason that I feel like we lost dreams is that's just saying the mechanical workings finally of the devil fruit, which don't get me wrong, glad we have it. That's nice. But I would have liked to have heard more about, especially in Egghead, about the professor and his own dreams and the losing of your dreams
All
and
right.
the vision of putting himself into those other people so that his dream wouldn't die and he could see it to its
I'll
end.
also
Like we had a real opportunity there. I think it was Egghead I felt sad about.
I think dreams were shelved for the Four Emperors saga. They were touched on in the end of Wano. They were touched on in Egghead. But I feel like Elbaf is the return to
Yeah.
dreams because Harold's dream is
But
what
what I
matters.
want to see is these tiny moments because we used to have these moments, these little shopkeeper on the side moments. And
agree.
I really love about One Piece when I'm reading these beginning moments again is how in the beginning we had things like, the small town with the tangerine salesmen and this one with the little sword salesman and like places with food vendors and da 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 da. I love these small
Well,
people in the piece.
I agree, and I think
So important. And
that's
I think
being
I'm missing them.
lost mostly because Oda's afraid of not finishing the series in time. And I wish relying on assistance more was more okay because frankly,
Yeah.
can you imagine a world where break week chapters we were instead having like a team of other artists and whatever their own art style is being like, hey, can I write this in-betweener scene where it's like, this happened at the end of Wano, and Oda's like, yep, here's my notes on your script, and I'm otherwise taking the week off. And he just lets other people
Yes.
do these little filler moments. And I think like the
Yes.
reason we lose that, like, I don't get me wrong, I get Oda not doing them anymore. He has this epic that he wants to tell. He has this
Yeah.
giant story he wants to tell that he can't finish if he spends time doing this anymore. But I do miss these. And I think you could
Yes.
so easily have a team of assistants learning how to become better mangaka by just doing these tweeners and being like, yeah, this is a little scene we're fitting in that happened when we first got to Elbaf. This is a scene at the end of Wano.
Because he obviously knows they're missing because the love letter that we got to One Piece was basically a love letter saying like, you know how you like these average characters, here's a big story told through the
Yeah.
average people again. We love that.
I think there's a place for it, and I understand that he is telling a story too big for one man to tell if you're going to tell it slowly. He
Yes.
is literally shortening his life with how hard he's working on it, and asking
Yes.
him to spend more of that time not pushing the story forwards. It's not a fair ask, but I do miss it.
No.
And I think there's a way, and I think the way humanity has always achieved our greatest feats is collaboratively. I find it so peculiar how often manga is built on this structure of like a theme around you need to work together, when so many mangakas' philosophy for how they handle their work is it needs to be me and then assistants backing me up.
And so let me tell you why we also noticed that. And in this chapter, I figured out what I was missing, and it was all the love letter type things. We see this throughout the story, but this one really felt like it. We see Sanji shopping for food again. We see Nami
Mhm.
shopping for clothes and taking a
Yep.
huge thing of clothes home. We see a small town. When Luffy stands up on the area where the executions take place and looks down into the market that looks very much like the square of Marco Polo in Venice, I was like, I miss those types of scenes. And then we get to see the common folk and the different t-shirts they're wearing. And I was like, ah, yeah, this is what I miss. All the little pieces with inside One Piece that keeps going back and forth between threading in the everyday people and the people who are going to make the biggest ripples, make the story so cool all the
Yep.
time, because I never felt like the world separates itself from the people in it, and that Luffy, the big, 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 and his crew never ever get to forget that they're just people still, because the story still finds little people worth talking about. And the minute that we stop doing that and we don't go into the stores and we don't have those moments, it
Mhm.
starts to separate your important characters, quote unquote, from your unimportant characters, quote unquote. And then society doesn't feel as important.
I think people are right that there is still elements of that. It's not like we lose it. We see the crew in their disguises in Wano. We see Usopp and Luffy goofing off in Elbaf. But you have to admit, there is like an element of it that feels missing. But you know what gives me some excitement, you talking about this, is me realizing there's room for more projects like Fan Letter. There's room for more
Yeah,
projects of
yeah,
showing the Straw Hats on this level where they're interacting with
yeah,
people more and they're seen as a part of the world. I don't know, like I think
yeah.
we have so much opportunity for that. And it reminds me of why I kind of hate the way that IP law has been built. This is a crusade I've been on a lot, but the way that IP law is handled is that like a property is owned by a person instead of a culture. Whereas the way stories used to work was they were myths that when an author or an artist came up with something beautiful, it could be expanded on, added to over time, and it became cultural consensus what the real version of it is. And all the things that were added on by others could eventually become the real version because stories are shared the way techniques and technologies are shared. And you might say, well, isn't that unfair to the original artist? But think about the way that like video games have developed over time. Think about how we describe video games where we'll be like, oh, it's basically so and so mixed with so and so when a new concept comes out. And that's because all of these ideas for game mechanics, much like ideas for storytelling, are being built upon. It's the culture telling it together. Souls like, rogue like, Metroidvania, exactly. And as much as it's still being handled in this corporate artificial way that I really dislike, projects like Fanletter are actually kind of fun. It's actually made me appreciate non-canon films and even appreciate the people who are like, yeah, Strong World is canon. No, it's not. But it's kind of cool that the myth of One Piece can shape enough that you can look at something that could fit into the story and go, I like the version of this story where this happens, though. Canon needing to be this owned, inflexible diamond is maybe a little less interesting than stories being something that can be shaped a little bit more by cultural interaction. Maybe it's cool. Like, I saw people online talking about recently how, like, would you have rather been a ninja in the Shinobi War in Naruto or a Marine soldier at Marineford? And one of the people bringing up why they wouldn't want to be a Marine was like, dude, fan letter showed us what it was like for a fodder Marine in that war, and it's hell. And the idea that something added on by another artist expanded the myth, that's really cool to me. This mythic story now has perspective from someone who didn't exist in the author's vision, and someone has added that perspective to their version of the story. And you know what? Fucking, I like that. I like that now. My opinions are growing over time.
Well, you know what? I super, super agree with you. Do you know the Edgar Allan Poe story, the cast of Amontillado?
Amontillado, not only do I know it, it's my favorite one, even though according to my political beliefs, I should definitely like Mask of the Red Death more. It's hard to not like seeing aristocratic Homer Simpson kill aristocratic Ned Flanders.
Excellent. Um, so in it, um, I'm just gonna ask. In it, he keeps going the niter over and over again. The niter is getting to you. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay, so in it, there's a job. It's called a niter. It's a saltpeter worker. They scrape saltpeter off of things. literally usually off of the walls or underneath stone or whatever. And then the saltpeter was used in gunpowder and in other areas. This is a story that just focuses on that. If that was a whole darn thing, and then somebody was like, oh, I want to build a story about a niter because nobody remembers these people. They don't even, these niter scrapers don't, are saltpeter workers or saltpetermen or petermen, they would call them. People wouldn't know about it. But if you were allowed to use that time frame and have the character gently show up and then talk about a whole story of pulling apart a castle stones and somebody later on finding this person hidden behind a wall, it would be incredible. Amazing. And the fact that we keep people from being able to have these pieces back in their life, like there is a way too. Like, do we want to pay homage and you're not allowed to have this much content from another person, or you have to get permission, or you have to give some money towards, like there's ways of doing it. But I feel like, because we don't allow that, we don't get more fan letters.
What a fun little detour that was.
In our introduction of Smoker, I like that we were introduced to him as a concept, and we saw him under his best and his worst prior to seeing him as a man. I thought that was a really cool thing.
Well, it's so true to One Piece's themes.
And that made it so good that prior to seeing the man, the myth, the legend, we heard from two different perspectives, both the worst and the best. And then when we see him as a person, they do that back and forth with him over and over again. So in his very first scene, we see him stacking rocks in a Zen practice as a way of focusing the mind. But we see that it's killing him and he is sizzling while doing it. So it's both that he is capable of great concentration, focus, and work, but at the same time, it murders his soul. And then we see him lose his ever-loving mind on people, but then a little girl bumps into him with ice cream and he's like, sorry, my pants ate your ice cream. So I love that with Smoker, they keep shifting back to these two sides of him as a man of patience and strength and focus and calm and kindness, or a monster and an unending wall that will find you and will attack you and hold you accountable for everything. And it goes back and forth between those two concepts of man. And I thought that was a really, really cool beginning for Smoker. That he kind of epitomizes both sides of the good and the bad of people in the story, the way that we usually see like some government people are crap, some are good, some pirates are good, some are bad. He seems to be teetering this line.
I think we can add to that in a cool way, where we see a bunch of Marines being introduced to Luffy in this chapter too, where Luffy's getting his bounty and the Marines who are putting his bounty on his head are like, it's an unprecedented first bounty, which we find out is a lie, but probably means unprecedented for the East Blue. And they're like, we are Marines. Our job is to stop evil. Luffy is being labeled as evil to people who've never met him, just in the way that as we get to know Smoker before we get to know him, we are being told that he is evil. We're being told he's a monster. We're being told that he's a hero, that he's cleaning up the city. We kind of get both perspectives, and it's very cool to see how early Oda was playing with the idea of perspective. And I think it's not a coincidence that we are seeing that in a chapter where he's playing with the idea of access to the news, where he's like, yeah, people raising the cost to your access to information actually does matter. We start off this section with Nami complaining about the cost of the newspaper going up. And Usopp's like, well, it's just a few dollars. What does it matter? And Nami's like,
which was amazing.
It adds up over time. And this is your access to what's happening in the world. Like, it feels like Oda is...
Let's be so for real to now. Like, Oda was saying, like, access to the simple things in your life going up. You may not notice at first that it makes such a big difference. But in the last 4 years, we've seen all groceries over double. And so it feels like this was a reminder from Oda back when he was a young man of the control that a conglomerate has over your everyday life expense. And now we're living in that warning.
Good Lord, where the hell were we? Oh, I wanted to tell you about the filler content that you didn't get that Oda might have wanted to include. All right?
Do this! Do it!
So, step one, remember Sanji bought the big fish?
Yes.
In the filler content, something was added to that. Sanji being like, yo, that's not native here. And the guy being like, yeah, I caught it to the south, is expanded on, with Sanji being like, oh my god, that must mean that there are fish from all sorts of seas that end up in the Grand Line, because right to the south is where the Grand Line is. Also added to that, he couldn't afford the fish. The price was too high in the anime content, and there was a cooking contest where he went up against a hot lady chef and rizzed the heck out of her by showing off his amazing fish skills.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we talked about the all blue. There was a hot lady chef. Sanji was like, yeah, I'm pretty good at cooking.
Zing, you make a good point. Up until this point, I didn't know that Sanji was a really good cook, so now I feel fixed. I also feel like Nami coming out was like, oh, temperature's changing. This is doing this. Blah, blah, blah. A storm is going to hit. I was like, you will be given your revenge, Nami.
I want
You
to say
will.
this makes me feel more and more like Dragon's Fruit is a mythical Zoan, because it feels like if he had a wind Logia, he wouldn't need to build it up in a way she could detect, you know?
Yeah, I think Dragon is a dragon, though. I'll get
But
into that later.
okay.
I didn't used to. I now think that he is a dragon.
Wouldn't it be crazy if Vegapunk just made 2 copies of Kaido's fruit and it's just literally that fruit? Usopp, a sharpshooter called Daddy Masterson, Daddy the Father, goes, "Hey, your dad, I'm great." And Usopp's like, "Don't talk about my dad that way." And Daddy's like, "They gotta let you do it." And then they go up on a roof and he's like, "I'll kill you if you..." And Usopp's like, "I bet I can hit that weather vane." "No, I can't do an Usopp." "Well, I'm going to hit that weather vane from all the way over here." And then he's like, and then Usopp takes out his slingshot and hits it. And then Daddy Masterson's like, "With a fucking slingshot? Yeah, you're crazy, kid." "Here's my daughter. Anyways, bye." Oh, it's all because his daughter took the goggles. I forgot. Wrath's Revenge, you're right. It's where Usopp got his goggles. Usopp's goggles he has from here on out. He saw at a store, was like, "I want these." A little girl takes them. Usopp's like, "Hey, I wanted those." "Oh, wait, this is a better Usopp voice." Mount Ashtree is correcting. He doesn't actually hit the weather vane, and Usopp thinks he's about to be killed. And Daddy Masterson is like, "Nah, dude, I was watching. That bullet went right through the hole of that weather vane. You got it dead on. That's actually crazy." And then Usopp's like, "Oh, I did? All right, I guess I get to live. Goggles for me." And then Usopp has goggles.
Goggles for me, and then Usopp has goggles. Jesus.
Okay,
Christ.
yeah. Raph added something here. I haven't watched this in forever. I forgot this is a thing until we read this, and I was like, "All right, Daddy." Daddy also says, "Yeah, Usopp said he thinks about his son sometimes. Inspired me to not be a Marine. Come home to my daughter, and now I'm in the safe line of work, bounty hunting." Next, Zoro. Does anyone remember how this happens? All I remember is Zoro becomes a chore boy and has to mop. Because he broke her glasses. They're so right. He broke her glasses. And she was like, "Well, now you need to do chores." And he was like, I do. And she goes, "Yeah." And he'd go, "All right." And then he goes, 3 mop style." And then he does 3 mop style. And he mops really good.
3 mop style, so based.
Yeah, at a certain point, he literally goes, "This is stupid." And he leaves.
I gave you the amount of repentance that I think you deserved. Goodbye.
It's more like he goes, "Wait a minute, I'm a criminal." And he just fucks off. Now we're going to talk about the good one, and it is the only one I am genuinely sad didn't make it into the manga. Yes, it's the tavern. There is a scene where Luffy can't find the platform. Smoker tells him where the execution platform is. That is very true. And he wanders into a tavern, and he's like, "Hey, this sucks." And Luffy sits down, and the guy's like, "Kids these days aren't built like that Roger feller." And then Luffy's like, "Hey, do you know where the execution platform is?" The tavern owner is the most shriveled prune of a man. That's very important. And the tavern owner just has this moment of, "Oh my God, you remind me of Gold Roger." Smoker was drinking there too. You're right, Paladin Berserker. Even though I don't remember the scene that well, I remember the feeling I got from the scene, and that's enough.
This sounds really kind of good.
It's actually a really good scene.
All the additions sound good because I would love to see Zoro's 3 mop style. I guess I can. I guess that's available.
Hey, did you find yourself stopping when she bought plastic, being like, "Wait a minute, One Piece has plastic?"
Yeah, did you find yourself stopping when Buggy turned into a car?
Yeah, he's a Buggy now. You're right. You're so true
That's a
about
car.
that. Let's talk about devil fruits. To do that, I actually have to go pee because I started with 4 beverages and I've been slamming them.
Time for going pee. This is the part where we go pee. Time for going pee. When you drink too much tea. Oh, that's good. You know what? That's pretty much nailed.
So, guys, I'm here to talk to you about observations about devil fruits. I'm going to start with the incredibly half-cooked observations. Why? Well, because I think they're worth noting, but they're not as good. So the half-cooked observations. We have a lot of devil fruits presents, folks. We got unknown devil fruit that Dragon almost definitely has. We know it. We love it. He's got wind powers or something. He's got something going on. We don't know exactly what. Next, we have Smokeman. Miss Hans Smokeman is here. I believe there is going to be significance, but we don't need to say Quetzalcoatlus. We don't need to talk about it. That's just a big pterosaur.
It's a good word, though.
Let's talk about the other powers. We got the chop chop fruit and the slip slip fruit. Here is something that I noticed immediately that I think is interesting. Luffy, Buggy, Alvida, their powers play off each other in a very, very interesting way. All right? Alvida seemingly can't be hit by anything. She can't be smashed or pierced. Buggy cannot be chopped. Luffy cannot be bludgeoned. Each of them offers some kind of different resistance. I think at this point, devil fruits were uncommon enough that Oda was having more thematic fun with it, okay? I think the devil fruits, he was playing off of them in a more thematic and interesting way, whereas later on, I do think a lot of the devil fruits kind of just end up being, hey, I want powers for bad guys to have. For starters, let's talk about movement. Buggy and Alvida both use their powers for movement in different ways, and on top of that, their powers both change their ability to be moved. You cannot force Alvida to move because every attempt will slip past her, and Buggy, if he is moved and taken apart, he can go in any direction and come back together. Luffy, very similarly, can be moved and move in many ways and bounce back into form. I say these are half-cooked because I don't really know what to do with this observation other than highlight Smoker and how he plays into this. Smoker is our first Logia. He is able to separate his body into mist in a similar way to the separation of Alvida Buggy and with similar intangibility to characters like Alvida. However, we are also introduced here to Sea Prism Stone and the ability to bypass a Devil Fruit's resistance. Also, we see Smoker being able to use his fruit to contain and capture people. I feel as though this is intentional. Smoker is a smokescreen, if you will. He is a permeable, in theory, wall that hides the truth of what the East Blue is from the rest of the world. He is stopping what it actually is from being seen by the rest of the world by not letting pirates through. Pirates do not enter the Grand Line from the East Blue. Also, little side note, I found it really interesting that the Marines here seem to, in the East Blue, their division, seem to be loyalist to Akainu and his movement because they practice absolute justice and even do an applaud for it. We do not need to go over that. What I do want to talk about is just the idea that Smoker is this imprisonment. He is this capture of what is seen as evil, but we also see that there is damage being done, that this smoke screen has consequences. You'll get that from the sword shop owner. I don't think he's a smith. I think he's just a shop owner. Where we see someone be like, yeah, my business is dead because there's no one to sell goddamn swords to. I think this is interesting and worth noting. But it matters not because the most interesting interactions of Devil Fruits come between Boy Gum Gum, Mr. D Dragon, and Smoker. Guys, how have I not thought of this before? Think about how useless Smoker is in this situation. Think about how he has been a perfect smokescreen, a perfect wall, stopping the East Blue from being seen by the rest of the world, keeping its corruption and darkness behind closed doors, and it is suddenly broken by what? Mr. Windman. He is as useful as, oh, you just saw it, didn't you? You just saw what I was going to say, but I'm going to say it anyways, as smoke in the wind. Literally, he is smoke in the wind. That is the moment we get here. His perfect barrier, his ability to protect, obfuscate, and block what's happening is blown away. What a brilliant interaction. The first figure we see able to fight what looks impermeable and invincible, our first Logia, is someone with wind power, someone who represents the storm, the winds of change. I do love this. Not only that, Smoker commits himself to following Luffy. Why is that? Well, Luffy has changed to the world and also, costs him his reputation. Smoker can see the importance of Luffy before anyone else because Smoke can see which way the wind is blowing. And I actually think that symbology fits here so goddamn well because the winds of change are the Eastern wind. The winds of change in four-directional East Asian mythology, that's the Eastern wind. That's the blue dragon. It represents change to the world. Smoker is smoke blowing with the wind, the winds of change from the East. Okay, someone delete your art. I'm curious how to do that here because I think this stays. So I think I need a new way to handle this. Anyways, these are the winds of change. Smoker is blowing with the wind. He is a signal to show the rest of the world. I think it's also interesting. You can use where there's smoke, there's fire. There's a lot of like smoke expressions and stuff. Hard to know exactly what you can do with it. But regardless, he is smoke in the wind. He is blowing with the winds of change. He can read which way the winds are going. I love the symbolism here. And then we get to Mr. D. Luffy, all right? Weather, clouds, the storm. I fucking love some stuff that I've noticed here. Ladies and gentlemen, when else do we see a defeated, about to be executed Luffy, where the government will sit back and let the pirates kill each other because that benefits us? Where a dragon conjures a storm and Luffy is to be killed. I don't know if you've noticed this, but this is symbolically played out in the climax of Wano. A dragon summons a storm. The government will allow the pirates to kill each other because that's what benefits them. Only this time, there is no intercession, and Luffy was killed. We are told now that this is the calm before the storm. That's a line in this section. Nami says, yeah, the weather looks good now, but this is the calm before the storm. There is a storm brewing. What about the calm after? What about the daybreak after? Luffy literally clears the skies with his transformation into Nika, the rising of the dawn, to signal the end of the storm. I love this. I love this so goddamn much. It's very, very good. Very, very cool. There's something cool about the idea of smoke being a lot like clouds, being able to obfuscate, hide, and trap the sun, and the winds coming in to clear that so that the sun one day may rise. The symbolism you can see in here with the devil fruits, I think is fascinating. And I do think there's something to Buggy and Alvida being these like untouchable, unmovable people who are somehow trapped and obfuscated here. But like, yeah, he does the same thing in Skypiea. That's true, but there's not a dragon bringing the storm that time. It's just some fucking dumbass. Some dumbass with weird ears.
Some dumbass with weird ears.
What are you going to call him? You can put respect on that man? He ain't my god. I didn't vote for him.
Shit, I have never been asked. Did the voting happen before my time?
That's what I've noticed. Thank you. Thank you, team.
Hi there, YouTube and VOD people and all the people of the world. I'm just so confused. Am I the only person who goes into things that I watch and I just immediately start by pressing like? I go in and then I press like because I'm so worried I'm not going to press like later on.
That's just you, I think.
Doop, doop, doop. I like these people. Like, because I like them. Oh, whoa. I went way off base there. This is me. I'm running around base. I hit a home run, but then I went up into the stand because I saw delicious hot dogs and had a delicious hot dog. I'm back now, guys. So press like. I press the address, I press subscribe. You can also press subscribe. I subscribed to people from Japan lately who I called the most relaxing people in the world. I subscribed, and 3 episodes later, they told me, that's the end of our 5-year journey. Bye. And I was like,
this is so unrelevant. Guys, that's not what's happening here. Unless you're watching this way in the future.
Woot woot. I didn't know how much it matters. It does. It matters. It matters a lot. Like this. I matter. That's all. Bye.
Okay.
I said goodbye now. What do we want to make some predictions about the people who were in the storyline?
I think that Tashigi is going to be the one that breaks and convince Smoker to switch sides.
I have a question first. Do you think
Yes.
that Tashigi and Smoker are going to become very popular again or like come back in significantly again?
Yeah, I do.
Are you just like, yeah, I do mid? Because your voice went way up at the end.
No, I think Kobe is the better example, but I think they are going to be some of our perspective on the Marines in the confrontation of ideals that is to come, where we're going to have people needing to kind of confront what side they're on. I think we're going to see it in Katakuri challenging loyalty to Big Mom and her empire. I think we're going to see it with Kobe for sure, of challenging whether being a good Marine means being a good world government soldier. I think there's a few places we're going to see it.
I'm hoping so, especially after we read this and I realized like what an absolute banger beginning we had with the two of them and how upsetting it is that we haven't done more work with them.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, seeing
I
Kobe in this cover story stand in front of the cannon, it's something I want to see from a lot of our Marines.
Yes. I forgot about the beginning part with Helmeppo and Kobe a little bit too, and seeing the cover stories in this area reminded me of like how, we kind of grew up with them. We got to watch them come along for
Yeah.
the little ride, and we're not really getting to see much of them anymore. And we left off in a really weird place with Kobe.
I like, I think it's fine where he is. I think it's good that he's like, I'm gonna crush your heart, Luffy. I'll destroy you.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're happy with it. Most people aren't. I could get behind your idea of Tashigi being the one that convinces Smoker, but on the other hand, Smoker is also one of those people who can really see for himself the value of a situation. Because remember when he was on the boat, and I can't even remember what the thing was that he said, but he was like, I'm not attacking this person or something.
Mhm.
Oh, what the hell was that? Way back. Do you know what the one I'm talking about? When he and Tashigi first got on the boat. They first get back on the boat, and that other woman came. Who was the other woman who came? Well, yes, Hina. It was Hina. Thank
You're
you.
talking about Hina.
And then, yes, and then they had that whole big conversation, and he was the soft one in it.
Well, he was also like, don't give me credit. I didn't do this. I don't want to lie to people. So he definitely has a real moral compass to him about like truth. His ideals matter to him. They're not fake. They're not. He actually really cares about what he cares about in a meaningful way.
And so because of that, and because of that moment between them in the beginning, I also think that he could come to his own on this. Like he could see what's
Yeah.
taken place, and if there is a big enough, if there's a big enough moment where the government does something in front of him, I could see him changing sides. And I do feel sometimes like Tashigi was more into there is right and there is wrong. Like you saw her inside
Yeah.
of the store when she was talking about the swords.
Yeah, I could see
So
that. I
could
think
see
that makes sense. I like the idea of her having learned the lesson well enough, I think is what I like, and teaching him and being like, look, this is exactly what you've been talking about. But I think you're right that it makes sense for Smoker to be it because he's the one who actually cares so much about this legitimacy and has the more he starts with the more complex ethical view. So carrying
yeah,
through with that, I
exactly.
think, does make sense.
And she seems to have a more narrow idea about what right and wrong is, and was talking about how she wanted to take back a sword from anybody who had it who was wrong. And so it reminded me of how she was kind of a stickler about she didn't have a lot of gray. And I
Yeah.
like the idea that Smoke is kind of like Smoke is the gray. He lives in the. I
Mhm.
never thought about it that way, but
Oh
Smoke
my
is
god, you're
usually
right. He's gray. He's called White Chase Smoker, but he is gray because he lives
But he's
in this
actually
moral
gray.
ambiguity. I think the reason I want
Yeah.
to see Tashigi learn the lesson though is a lot of what we get in Alabasta, where Tashigi's like, "What do we do, sir? Are we on Crocodile's side or the Straw Hats?" And Smoker's like, "I should have taught you to be a good enough soldier to know what the right thing to do is right now." And then she
Exactly.
goes and helps the Straw
Exactly.
Hats. Like, leaves her to make that choice. And I could even see, you know what I could see happening? Is a repeat of that where Smoker has in his head made up his mind, and Tashigi's like, there's a schism happening, there's this war happening, whose side are we on? And Smoker's like, I think I've taught you well enough to know right from wrong. You know what side we're on, don't you? I just like that arc coming full circle with her being the one to see it, you know?
It would be I agree with you that it would be better storytelling if she's the one who finds it, and it would be more interesting if she is the one who changes and convinces him. I would like it more because it would be you're 100% right. It would be a full circle. He tried to teach her how to be a good soldier, meaning that you sometimes have to pull yourself away from the situation and ask yourself, what is your moral code and ethics on this on your own?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, she hasn't shown that growth. But on the other hand, because apparently we have three of them,
We do in
she
hypothetical spaces. You have three hands. It's known. This is known.
it would make her be such a better character, and it would bring their story around in a way that I would really, really enjoy them. Because she would have done the growth that we were looking for earlier on.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, I
that's my
like
hope.
your idea more. I like your idea more.
We'll see how it plays out.
We'll see if Oda agrees. I think that we're going to have revealed this big old dragon fella is a dragon, and that he's the dragon that breaks between heaven and earth. He's the one that
Okay.
rebels against heaven.
And what is that dragon? Tell me about it. Tell me what's up. Because my idea is Quetzalcoatlus. It's a big snake.
Are you going to talk about the Quetzalcoatlus now?
It's a big snake. He's got wings. He's a god of wind and storms in what is it? Aztec, Mayan? I think Mayan mythology. He's like a big guy. The feathered serpent is found in various cultures of South America. There we go. I don't remember if we talked about him. All I know is Big old snake controls the weather. Let's give it to him.
Apparently, there's a bunch of different dragons that break a pact with heaven or rebel against heaven.
Isn't it weird that most of the mythological figures are either like a generic animal, right? Azure dragon, the special dog is a generic animal instead of like specific named deities. With the or they're unique to One Piece, like Nika. With the exception, for some reason, being what you call them. The exception is Buddha. There's just a Buddha. It feels weird that we have that exception to this consistent rule that it's like One Piece versions of deities.
The reason, though, that I think that dragon could still be a dragon is because Japanese mythology features like 5 main types of dragons. Okay, so
Yeah.
Google says celestial, spiritual, land, treasure defending, and imperial.
Okay.
So we had our Kaido, who was a directional dragon.
Yep.
You have Momo, who I would
That's
say
also a
would
directional
be
dragon, though, because it's a copy of Kaido's fruit.
Yeah, you have your Momo, who I would say is a exact copy except for kindness and awesomeness. And then you have the celestial dragons, who are they're celestial.
I could see that.
I could see him as being kind of imperial, or I could see him because Luffy is treasure defending in the way that the treasure is all the people and their dreams.
I will allow this. This sounds insane, but I will allow it.
I just feel like this is another reason I started to think about treasure and dreams again. If you're talking about Luffy saying, this is my treasure and why he treasures it and the treasure of the people, and why did he want to become a pirate? Because he wanted to have the camaraderie and the friendship that he would always talk about. And so he wanted a crew, and that's where his piracy comes from. Then I could see him being that if you kind of played with the rules the same way we played with the rules of hell, which, by the way, I think we're going to play with the rules of hell again since we've had that whole
you
thing
think
with
we're going to get a magical Yamato eye patch teleportation through hell, as opposed to me, the normal one thinks hell is magical tree roots because I'm normal.
I also agree that hell has magical tree roots.
When I'm calling you crazy, I feel like I need to remind people that I've also said insane things.
But we just saw something on the land of Godland or whatever it's called, God Valley, where the people came up with where the people came up with black wings and hell-like faces when they've been changed. So I think we're going to play with some of those concepts again. So I just think that if Luffy sees people and freedom as a type of treasure, that he could be a treasure dragon.
Okay.
Defending treasure. Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think would leave room then for our big bad dragon, whose name is Dragon, to be a dragon.
But if we're counting Luffy, that's more of a symbolic dragon because his fruit is a human fruit, which means that we have to leave room for Dragon to be a symbolic dragon also.
I guess. But I just feel like he's a dragon. I mean, I know it seems crazy because his name is Dragon. And so it's the craziest theory I've ever come up with or you've ever come up with because I'm suggesting that his fruit matches his name. And that's weird.
Unlike other One Piece characters like Cracker and Sparrow, whose name means lick. Fucking what Mondor, who's made of cream, whose name means a cream dessert. No one else's fruit matches. That'd be crazy.
The fact that his name means lick is something I cannot get over. What did this historical use of the word dragon as a feathered serpent would also be a dragon, I guess. Yeah. So you're saying that even if Drawk's idea of what he is correct, it's also kind of a dragon?
Yeah.
There's so many rebels against heaven symbols in dragons, like dragons that are storm dragons and rebel against symbols, like so many. And that's one of the only reasons that I kind of was like, maybe not, because if you have a person who brings lightning and stuff, which there is like a bunch of dragons who bring lightning and storms and thunder, and there's that many that rebel against heaven, it almost seems too on the nose.
So I'm going to grade it against other One Piece arcs, and you're going to grade it on as its own little story, which I have the much easier job because this is not a very complete story. I'm going to give this a B+. I know that's very high with the curve we've been grading on so far. This held up really well to me. I am shocked at how much story and meat and like how mentally full I felt from 5 chapters. Genuinely, it's quality top to bottom. The length doesn't matter. It gets a B+. I really like this. It hit.
I gave it an A.
You know what?
I was like,
explain yourself.
All on its own as a little mini story. I was like, this is And I remembered it over time as being more than 5 chapters. When I got to the end, I was like, what? This for me was the moment that I fell in love with One Piece. Up until here, I was like, it's a pretty good story. It's pretty interesting things. This was my fall in love with One Piece. You bring in all of the stuff with Roger in this one and him standing, and the way that when his very end of his life is coming, that he smiles through death, and then Luffy mirrors it without even knowing that part of Roger's death. When he thinks he's going to die, he's like, oh, well, sorry, guys, looks like my time is out, and then grins because he's not going to go out of this world without a smile on his face. And then to see the way that Zoro treats swords and doesn't allow the problems and the pain and the reputation that others put on things to define how he's going to move through the world. And he says, let's just see whether my luck is bigger than its curse. And then getting to see Nami come out and do that whole piece, like she walks outside and immediately like the barometric pressure is down. There seems to be more water in the air. This is happening. And just as immediately like, boom, this is going to be a storm. And I felt like every single one of the characters, maybe not Usopp as much. Yes, actually.
Yeah, because he didn't get to fight Daddy Masterson.
Yeah, if I got to see Daddy Masterson, it'd be an A+. So because of all the different things that all the characters do, and how cool the story was, and how it made me feel like I just couldn't wait for the adventure now of going up Reverse Mountain, I was like, holy shit.
I think throughout all of One Piece, including somehow the rebirth of Luffy, no moment has felt as mythical as the bolt of lightning saving Luffy. It doesn't feel that way in the anime. I'd never read it before. I recommend any anime viewers who haven't read that part, read this section, because everything from the crackle on Buggy's sword to the moment the smoke starts to clear, people's reactions, they don't have dialogue. It's just these wordless chapters for a stretch. It is the most mythical feeling section of One Piece. It feels so wildly significant. That was Dragon.
Do that a lot.
Dragon. But it's also
doesn't do that a lot in the rest of the story. Like he doesn't do a direct the universe or dragon saves a person in such a magical like he never gives credit to Dragon. You have to assume.
Immediately Zoro and Sanji being like, hey, do you believe in a higher power? Is Zoro being like, no, that's dumb, while between them is Luffy?
Yes! They say, do you believe in God? And Luffy is standing in the middle of the two of them in the shot. I mean, it's 5 chapters, but it just
these 5 chapters feel like they scratch an itch somehow. All right, everybody.
I was so happy to read them again. This was one of my favorite rereads.
Thanks for being here, folks. You know what's wild? I think Reverse Mountain is longer than this, but I think Reverse Mountain isn't going to be on its own, because I think there is more story to talk about in these 5 chapters than there is in Reverse Mountain. Thank you so much to our crew, Dark Kuro, Dig, Dr. Jack, Icy Naz, NX Love, and Dancing Viru. And thank you to this week's special squishy, Daniel Pill? I think it's Daniel Pill. I thought it was Daniel Phil, but it's Pihl. Thank you, Daniel Pill. Until next time.
Squish on squishies.
It's been lovely talking to you.